One day I went in to see Bo about headsets on the sidelines. And Bo says, "Now, John, you know, I'm having a hard time hearing the crowd out there. And I need some headsets that'll deflect the sound of the crowd." I said, "Bo, I'll do that." Went back in and said, "Bo, I've got these headsets now. They cost $550 a piece. They deflect the sound. They're the same type of headsets that the air pilots wear. But here's the problem you got. If you throw them on the ground, they're going to break. And then that's $600 out the door." Bo says, "Well, now, John, I don't throw headsets on the ground." And I said, "Well, Bo, if you don't, there's somebody out there who looks just like you who's giving you a bad name." So lo and behold, that next Saturday, there it is, the game. The referee makes a bad call. All of a sudden, I see Bo reach up and reach for his headsets. I jumped out on the field and I started playing defense like a basketball player. Bo looked at me and he says, "Damn you, John," and took the headsets and jammed it back on my head.
This was Bo's approach to fundraising when he had this job that I now have. He decided he wanted to build the football building, and it was the first time that we had really decided to go out and solicit philanthropic gifts to help fund this capital outlay for this building. And so we didn't really have a sophisticated development deal. Bo just kind of said, "I want to build this new football building." He wanted to call it the Center of Champions. That ultimately became Schembechler Hall. And he said, "I'll raise the money." So I'm sitting at my desk one day doing my work at a company I was working at. And believe me, I was at a stage in my career where I had a mortgage and I was paying car payments and I was buying furniture and I was not in a position. To me, probably in those days, a really big gift to a charity would have been a $500 check. And so the phone rings and my secretary comes in and says, "Dave, it's Bo Schembechler." And I'm immediately like, "What did I do wrong?" I'm 30-some years old or whatever I was, and still to that day when Bo was chasing you down, you kind of wondered, okay, I must have screwed up. So I get on the phone, "Bo, what's up?" And he goes, "David, you know, we had the lousiest locker room in America. You know you were a part of it, right?" And I said, "Yeah, it was pretty bad." He says, "Yeah, and you know, we're like 10th in the Big Ten, right?" And I said, "Yeah, I understand." He says, "So we're building a new one. We're building a new one, and I got to raise the money for it." And I said, "Okay, Bo." He said, "Dave, I got you down for $100 grand, okay?" And I went, "Sure, Coach, sure. All right, good. I appreciate your help. See ya. Bye." And I sat there and I went, I just gave away $100,000 that I'm not even sure I have. But the reality was, you didn't say no to Bo, so I didn't. And I figured out a way to pay the $100,000.
Sure enough, the helicopter gets there, and the helicopter medics, paramedics come in, and they have to change him to a different bed and a different gurney thing, and they're putting the wires on this and the wires on that and making sure he's all attached. And a girl who is with them in her crash helmet that has the winged helmet on it comes in and says, "I'll ask you some questions so we don't have to bother him." And he's busy with the guys taking the electrodes off of him and all that. So she says his name, and I said, "Bo Schembechler," is Glenn Schembechler. "How old is he?" I said, "I think he's like 74 now, 75, whatever." And he goes, "Yeah." And then he says, "What's his height and weight?" And I said, "I think he's about 5'10" or 5'11". I believe he weighs about 195. And he picks his head up off of the pillow. And they're working on him with all these wires and stuff, because he overhears me say 5'11", 195, and he goes, "Jim, that's 195 pounds of blue twisted steel," and then lays back down. And I thought to myself, here's a guy that's got, the heart thing going on with all these guys attaching, wires and leads to him, but he couldn't resist that opportunity to give everybody that jag at, "I'm a tough son of a bitch." And he did. That's Bo.
If you could only have sat in those meetings when he would come in every day, and the things that he would talk to you about life and about football and about school and relationships and jobs and your profession and the things that you were going to experience and do as you got older, and how you treated people, If we could go back in time, that would really capture the person he is.
And although I don't have a Bo Schembechler story, having been from Topeka, Kansas, I do have a football story. I always thought I would probably play major college and most likely professional football later in life. Judging from my 5'10", 160-pound frame, I was obviously quite wrong at the time, but I had no way of knowing. And so when I was a little kid, I was really pretty good at flag football because there was no contact and I was small and pretty quick and nobody could really get down that low to grab my flags. And I was sure this was going to translate into a huge career in tackle football. So my very first year playing tackle football was in 7th grade, and I was made the quarterback for some reason. I guess at that time we really weren't passing much. We were sort of just handing off left and handing off right. Anyway, in the first quarter of our first game, our coach made the mistake of calling a passing play. I dropped back to pass the ball, and my friend Bryce Nelson, who was the center at the time, did not block anybody. And I got absolutely mauled by one of the biggest people I had ever seen at that time. I was lying on the ground. I looked up, and I thought my life had taken a new chapter as I could only see partly out of my right eye, and I had absolutely no vision out of my left eye. As I was pondering the consequences of this tackle and how it was going to affect the rest of my life, my buddy Bryce, who again hadn't blocked anybody, came over, bent over, laughed, picked me up off the ground, and straightened out my helmet. And it's what I'd been doing, is sort of looking out of the ear hole with my right eye, and the helmet had completely turned around in the side of my face. At that point, I realized a football career was probably not in the cards for me, and I started studying science.
Bo walks in with a pink shirt on, open neck, a gray, like silk or linen jacket, and a pair of linen, like khaki pants, penny loafers, and no socks. And I looked at him and I said, "Okay, will you do me a favor?" And he goes, "What's that, Jim?" "Go up and get Bo Schembechler and bring him back down here."
He was brutally honest with you. And if you were doing something right, he told you about it, and he complimented and he pumped you up. And if you were doing something wrong, or you weren't measuring up, or he didn't think you were living the right way, performing the right way, doing the right things, he told you. And I mean, he sat you down as a man, and you sat across the desk, and he said, "Hey, here's what I think your problem is." Now, you may not agree with it, and you challenge him. And what was nice about it was that you could argue with him about it. And you'd say, "No, I don't, okay, I may agree with this, but I disagree with this." And you could go at it hard and challenge him. And he wouldn't hold it against you. He wouldn't think anything differently of you. And you'd end the meeting and you'd shake hands and you'd walk out of there and you move forward.
And they get up on the river, and the first night it's just pouring rain. It rains in Alaska all the time, and it's cold. And he's complaining and pissing and moaning the entire time, which he did all the time anyway, which was just, that's Bo. So the first day they get up, and they're getting on the raft, and they're going to go down the river, and they're going to catch fish. So Bo's the last one to get on because he's making sure everything else is all right and taken care of, because he's the take charge guy. I'm the coach. I'm going to get everything ready, then I'll get on and we'll go. Well, the raft is about that much farther from the rocks that he's supposed to get on than it should be. So he puts a foot on there, and the raft drifts a little bit further away, and he goes right in the freezing water. Now, he is sputtering and swearing. He is not happy, and everybody else on the boat is going, "Oh, jeez, now we're in trouble." And he's standing on the bank, and he is soaking wet, and Kat says, "You got to take off your clothes. You can't be in wet clothes in this kind of weather, in this kind of cold. You'll catch your death. Take off your clothes." And he's standing on the shore all by himself going, "What the hell are you talking about? Take off your clothes." He said, "Take off your clothes." So he strips to his underwear, and he's standing there freezing in the middle of the Alaskan outback.
You never would say the game's over. His idea is, I never lost a game. Occasionally I ran out of time.